This is a 14-inch laptop. This is a 16-inch laptop. And this, my friends, is an 18-inch laptop. And guys, gaming on an 18-inch laptop is so much better, as is doing anything else on it. I mean, this laptop is like a gamer's dream. It's the ROG Strix 18. It's got the best of the Core i9, the 13980HX with up to 140 watts of power draw in turbo mode, 16 gigs of onboard DDR5 RAM with support for up to 64 gigs, 1 TB SSD with an additional M2 slot, and an RTX 4070 GPU with a TDP of 140 watts and 8 gigs of virtual RAM. This packs a ton of power, and I'm about to show that to you in just about a minute. But you know, it's really the 18-inch display that makes up for half the experience on this thing. It's a massive screen that justifies the kind of experience you expect from a gaming laptop. I mean, this is the kind of display where you don't feel the need to play games on a larger screen. This is big enough to keep you hooked and immersed into the game. And every time I open the display and I'm like, okay, wow, this should be fun. And that is the kind of feeling you want to get every time, right? But guys, 18-inch display does imply a certain weight and bulk. The entire thing weighs about 3 kgs, and then you add the power brick, it comes to a total of 3.5 kgs. Other than that, the display is actually quite good. It's an IPS display with a very sharp QHD Plus display, refreshing at an insane 240 Hz. And it's 500 nits bright, which is sufficient for majority of the use cases. And I do believe that there are FHD Plus panels at 165 Hz that are also available, and you could consider if you're looking to buy the same laptop but at a more affordable pricing. Also, it's a 16:10 aspect ratio, so it gives you more efficient screen real estate. It's got a 3 millisecond response time, and it is G-Sync enabled. It also has an anti-glare display, which is perfect for killing reflections, and it's got Dolby Vision. Now, all in all, I think it's a really fancy display that the ROG guys like to call ROG Nebula display. It's obviously not as inky black as OLED, which of course can be very expensive at high refresh rates. But if you're into playing like horror titles, right? Where the darkest parts may not be as dark, like it might be a little bit gray, but all in all, the backlight leak on this is really not all that bad. But yeah, I just have to emphasize on how amazing you feel doing anything on this 18-inch screen, whether it's playing games, watching movies, or just binging TV shows. The media experience is just fantastic. And now let's talk about performance. Now, I'm not going to get into benchmarks. There are many videos that cover that, but let me share my personal experience. So I started with Forza 5 on Ultra preset. Screen resolution and frame rate was set to max, but with DLSS and AI frame gen set to off. And while playing, my frame rate was averaging between 90 and 100 FPS, while GPU utilization was almost always near 98-99%. The average GPU temperatures also went up to 77 degrees Celsius. But absolute joy to play this game. But then I went ahead and turned on DLSS and AI frame gen just to see the impact on performance, and the frame rates went up to 150 FPS, averaging at about 140 FPS, with GPU utilization dropping like a minor 2-3% and temperatures still staying around 73 degrees Celsius. But yeah, I can't stress enough about how good this is on a big screen. Anyway, next I played Valorant, kept all settings at standard high and all effects turned on to maximize the load on the GPU, and the gameplay was an absolute breeze. I mean, I couldn't quite hit 240 Hz, but I was still getting 220 Hz refresh rate with GPU utilization at about 70% and temperatures averaging around 70 degrees. Lastly, I played Call of Duty Vanguard at, again, Ultra preset, but with DLSS set to basic, and I was averaging 130 FPS with GPU temperatures persistent around 70 degrees, and the utilization at about 95%. But then I went ahead and turned on DLSS. Average frame rates rose to about 170 FPS, which was a significant jump, while the temperatures and GPU utilization stayed pretty much the same. Now again, if you want to prioritize frame rates and hit 200 FPS, you can probably reduce certain settings and still achieve that on Call of Duty. And also, let's look at some video editing tools like Premiere Pro and how they perform. So for video editing, completely, even if you use like 4K 10-bit footage, this is going to somewhat manage that. Even with transitions and effects applied, if you pre-render that stuff, you will be able to manage a smooth edit experience with this machine. But yeah, if you do layer up your 4K footage with effects and transition, that can get heavy, then you will need to pre-render. And if you're into like casual video editing, like for short form content, absolutely, this is more than capable for that kind of stuff. And of course, for Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom, again, more than capable. And by the way, the Strix G18 does have mux switch with advanced Optimus support. So basically, if required, it will disengage with the iGPU and connect directly to the GPU for increased performance. And it would do that without you requiring to restart the machine. So yeah, that's great. So the question is, how is the ROG Strix G18 able to deliver such high performance with, such powerful CPUs and GPUs without causing a thermal havoc inside? Well, it's a big chassis and it allows for plenty ventilation on all three sides and underneath. A lot of circulation, you get 6 heat pipes, and you have this tri-fan technology right here. Also, ROG uses conductonaut liquid metal for cooling your CPU, which is actually a lot better than the traditional thermal paste because it can cool your CPU by an additional 15 degrees, and that is actually super. And then you've got your vents and heat sinks all around to ensure that heat is dissipated for longer and more stable gaming sessions. But let's talk about other things that form a part of the experience of owning this laptop. So the ROG Strix, it looks and feels a lot like a gaming laptop, right from the RGB keyboard to the wraparound RGB lighting, all of which, by the way, is customizable. You've got this ROG branding etched on this plastic body that sort of is printed like a stamp across the keyboard in a very classy way. The grills under the bottom bezel, on the sides and at the back give it a bold gaming look too. Now, one thing to note is that all the ports have moved to the sides and nothing at the back. See, some people prefer ports at the back because, then their setup is tidy, while some prefer on the sides, but then, they're more accessible that way. No wrong answer there. And for the ports, you've got 2 USB-A 3.2 Gen 2 ports on the right and the rest are all on the left. You could pause here if you'd like to get the hang of the port situation. Moving on, the lid has this nice lip which you can hold to easily lift and open with one hand without really displacing the laptop at all. It's nice and sturdy also thanks to the really good rubber grip here that you get on the backside. And you've got 2 speakers right here with smart amp for nice and loud sound. And looking at the insides, first there's an optical sensor here that will ensure that your laptop is shut off anytime you open the back plate, so that's cool. And here's the additional M2 PCI Gen 4 slots. If you want to expand storage, you could do that. Those are the upgradable RAM slots. And that's the 90 watt-hour battery right there. And by the way, there is support for RAID 0 configuration if you do in case want super fast SSD read-write speeds. And even though this supports 7000 Mbps raw output, the stock SSDs deliver these read-write speeds. Now, the lid doesn't go too far back. This is the max limit to which you can tilt it. The bezels are super thin and you've got a small 720p camera right here for video calls and all. And by the way, this does not support Windows Hello facial login, and there is no fingerprint sensor on the keyboard, for biometrics to log into stuff and all. And then there are mics right here that can help you with calls, and you can configure your mic for better performance within the Armory Crate app, including AI noise cancelling speaker, which you can turn on to remove noise from incoming feeds of other people, which is super cool. The keyboard, as you can see, is a full-size keyboard with a fairly satisfying typing experience, and the keys also have this soft matte feel, which would help if you're someone who gets sweaty too quickly in the palms. You get a 2 mm travel distance, which is decent, and this is what it sounds like. And these are the customizable hotkeys that can be configured in the Armory Crate app to do any function that you think you'll use often. The trackpad, which is 10% larger than its predecessor, is centrally placed with regards to this side of the keyboard, which may take some time to get used to. It's got a nice glass coating so your fingers glide conveniently, though I do think the clicks could have been made with a little less more effort than it takes now. But then hopefully you're gaming a lot and you're using a mouse, so none of this is really an issue for you. Now, of course, within the Armory Crate, you do get the option to change your performance profiles based on your requirement, with Turbo being the maximum performance preset that you can choose. But of course, that does drive up the fan noise and a bit of heat. Now, there's also a manual mode that you could use to overclock and take performance to higher peaks. But that is only for those who know what they're doing. And lastly, coming to the battery. Look, this is a gaming rig, right? And it's geared for high performance and not so much for efficiency. I mean, it comes at a cost of efficiency. And so if you're gaming on this on just battery, you'll get about 1 hour. But if you're doing like normal, non-gaming, work-oriented stuff, you can push this to about 3 to 4 hours of use. at about 30-40% brightness levels. Now guys, the 90 watt-hour battery can be charged using this 280 watt adapter. It's about half kg, and here in India, you do get this plug, which is like one of those big ones. So you're gonna need to find like a big socket if you want to charge this, right? So that could be a little bit of a hassle because not everywhere you get those plug points. What you can then do is use like a 100 watt charger and charge the laptop using the Type-C port. So it does support 100 watt PD charging, as I said. So yeah, I think that is a good idea. But yeah, it's obvious that the 100 watt charger is going to take longer to charge the whole thing, and this 280 watt would do it in about an hour. Now guys, let's talk about pricing. So the Strix G18, it starts at 1,69,990 here in India, and this I think is the top model which I have, and this costs about 2,19,990. I leave the US pricing here, just for reference. You'll find all the links to buy this at the ASUS store in the description. There's also going to be a coupon code, so if you do want to get yourself a bit of a discount, you could do it. Guys, overall, I think this is a fabulous gaming rig. Whether it's the design aesthetics, whether it's the performance, or even the price. If you look at some other manufacturers that offer similar specs, ASUS has really kept this competitive, as it does always, and the Strix G18 is actually no exception to that. So yeah, that's it about the Strix G18, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section. And as always, if you did enjoy watching the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, guys, and hit that bell notification icon and mark all. It goes a long way to support the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.